Welcome to Ink Paper Stone, 6 women artists in the language of lithography. My name is Gloria Williams Sander. I'm the curator, and it's my pleasure to introduce you to this exhibit. The exhibition features 78 prints by 6 critically acclaimed artists who came to Los Angeles in the 1960s to learn the art of lithography at the Tamarind Lithography Workshop. They are Ruth Asawa, Gago, Eleanor Mikus, Louise Nevelson, Irene Siegel, and Hedda Stern. They came from across the country and as far away as South America, and they practiced in mediums including painting, sculpture, and installation art. What they shared was an eagerness to gain fresh perspectives on their own art practice. At Tamarind, a 2-month fellowship offered them precisely this opportunity. They learned to print from stone. They were exposed to tools that were new and specific to this medium. And they had the opportunity to collaborate with master printers who helped them realize their goals. At Tamarind, the artists were immersed in an environment where they could concentrate on image making while the master printers reckoned with the technical requirements. Ruth Asawa's Tamarind prints are illustrative of the flexibility that lithography offered the artists as they created their compositions. Asawa is best known for her abstract hanging sculptures. Made from looped and tied wire, they are surprising for their lightness and transparency. At Tamarind, Asawa pursued her keen interest in the play between abstraction and representation in 2-dimensional form, as illustrated in the 2 prints from her residency in 1965. Desert Plant is the first state of a botanical subject that captured Asawa's interest. She built up her design on multiple stones and aluminum plates. Her drawing for the complex branching forms of the plant were printed in pink ink. A dark orange occupies the center or core of the subject, and then the images floated before a luminous gold background where it appears to emanate light and energy. Desert Flower is the second state, where the plates were updated in design and color. This time, the background toning around the flower and the concentration of dark orange at its core were removed. Asawa asked the printers to add a red-brown ink to her branching design to emphasize and to add to its volumetric impression. The paper was rotated slightly for this second state of the print, and as a result, the flower appears as a double image. In comparison to the first state, Desert Flower's openness and dimensional quality evoke the feathery parachute of a dandelion flower. Venezuelan artist Gago traveled from Caracas to Los Angeles in the following year, 1966, for her fellowship. Trained as an architect and engineer, Gago was used to using the line as an agent of articulation to define form. When she dedicated herself to art making in the 1950s, she released the line to find its agency in freedom and inspiration. This approach distinguished Gago as one of the foremost South American artists working in abstraction in mid-century. Untitled, number 4, is intimate in scale, measuring only 18 by 12 inches. The first thing to note is the parallel lines inked in red that run from the left to the right in the upper half of the page. An irregular upward break through the lines gently upsets their movement. They crown an ensemble of vertically oriented, slightly undulating lines below. These appear to sway or oscillate like a thin curtain that catches the wind. A closer look at the page through the web of lines reveals another active pattern of lines painted in pink below. This combination accounts for the visual pulse, the suggestion of flickering that Gago achieved here. Her attention to the lines and the space between the lines convey the energy and motility in her work. Her art has associations with the op art movement of the 1960s. At Tamarind, Gago explored these optical possibilities in multiple printed forms that included a bound book and a folding lithograph meant to stand on its edge. Detroit-born Eleanor Mikus moved to New York in 1960 and gained acclaim for her tablet paintings, a hybrid form of painting in relief, where she took pieces of wood and sometimes fiberglass, laminated them together with gesso and glue, and then sanded them until they became an entirely new construct. Their surface effects, the modulation of the surface, the cast shadows, the sensation of light, became their subject. Arriving at Tamarind in 1968, Mikus worked to conjure a similar experience with lithography, even going so far as to name her prints tablet lithos and numbering them as she did her painted reliefs. In tablet number 6, every inch of paper is taken up by the design, which continues to the edges as if to infinity. With no center of attention, our eyes can wander over the surface of the print and take in the character of the paper, the pattern, the fluctuations between areas of light to dark. The vitality of the image arises from how the oval shapes advance and recede, forward and backward, and their shifting opacity against the luminous blue pigment. Tablet 6 is emblematic of Mikus's vision to create an art of awareness. Romanian-born Hedda Stern was educated in Bucharest, Vienna, and Paris. When she moved to New York in 1941, she met Peggy Guggenheim, the famous collector, who introduced her to the city's avant-garde. Fascinated by the radically modern character of the city, Stern created abstract paintings that captured the dynamic infrastructure of the city's bridges, roads, and buildings. However much abstraction was part of her practice, Stern never completely rejected representation. The 1967 Tamarind Fellowship arrived at a fortuitous moment for the then 57-year-old artist, as her interest turned from the urban landscape towards the natural world. At Tamarind, Stern explored the organic forms of vegetation and the illusory effects of sea and sky. A crinkly head of lettuce inspired a suite of 9 lithographs entitled Metaphors and Metamorphoses. Here, Stern investigated the formal properties of this multi-layered, loosely circular shape as she drew on the stone. As the title for the series suggests, this is a study of organic forms that embody flux and change. Here, Stern's meandering line finds areas of concentration marked by thicker, darker lines that are somewhat reminiscent of currents of water or studies of hair. In this example, the steadiness and symmetry of the rhythmically drawn lines provide a different effect. They are mesmerizing, hypnotic, much like a visual mantra, where the layers of line and color echo the chants of a prayer. Louise Nevelson, one of America's greatest sculptors in the 20th century, is represented by 6 large-scale lithographs that she produced at Tamarind in 1967. She has been celebrated for the norm-busting nature of her artwork. Monumental, monochromatic wall pieces and independent sculptures that were created of found and carved wooden objects. Nevelson aimed to translate the large-scale patterns and irregular shapes of her sculptures into the lithographs that she created at Tamarind. This print is illustrative of the direction she followed. Working on several stones, Nevelson painted bold, loosely geometric forms in red and green. She even had inked fabric pressed onto the stone to achieve textural effects and to unite the solid shapes. Scratched lines, suggestive of geoglyphs, those large designs produced on the ground, link the shapes and animate the surface. The 5 flaps surrounding the central image are not technically lithographs. They are shaped papers that were laid against a wet lithograph before it was run through the press. The result is a transfer, a lighter impression of the original image, something like a counterproof. This is the beauty of lithography, which could accept Nevelson's process of layered steps. Her inventiveness freed the prints from their conventional format, shifting our expectation for how a lithograph should look. Irene Siegel was the youngest of the artists to have a Tamarind Fellowship. In 1967, she was just 32 years of age. She had a strong background in design and in intaglio printmaking. Her work is distinguished from the other artists in this exhibition by its figurative nature, bold color, and strong patterns. Her style is based on color and pattern, which she described as pop surrealism. However personal her imagery is, it's playful and often like a puzzle that's waiting to be deciphered. The artist's desire to create graphically strong prints is evident in the imaginatively titled Hollywood Nap, where a female figure is shown dozing. She's stylishly dressed from her outfit to the gleaming ring on her finger. A colorful collision of bold shapes above the figure perhaps embody the vivid sensory hallucinations of her dream world. But like a dream, no narrative structure is apparent. Her work may be less about making narrative sense and more about capturing the eye and conveying a mood of excitement. The flexibility of lithography allowed these artists to stretch and to test their creativity in the collaborative environment of the workshop. All the artists remember their time at Tamarind appreciatively, and many maintained correspondence with June Wayne, its founder, for years to come. If they did not become virtuoso printmakers, they contributed mightily to the appreciation for lithography as a fine art.